It's finally time to Blueshawk. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. That's right, our almost 4-year hunt finally comes to an end. I found my blue Blueshawk that we need to review. Chicago blue, that is. So this is one of those mid-90s Gibson models that never really seen a lot of love and recognition. The Nighthawks appear to have been way more popular. So let's start things off with some first impressions. It's kind of a smaller body guitar, definitely influenced by a Les Paul, but it's got the sharp cutaway over here, so Florentine versus Venetian. It's a slightly thinner guitar. It's even got a comfort cut. It has a string-through bridge system, so kind of like a Telecaster. You've got 2 single coil pickups that look like P90s. But what if I just lied to you? This guitar actually has 3 pickups. This one's a dummy coil. We'll talk about it over on the workbench, but it gets rid of the hum of the guitar. And then we've got a blade-style selector switch, a varitone. Believe it or not, this is a 25.5-inch scale length. It has a soft V-shaped neck. I mean, just take a look at the heel. It's all pointed and triangular. You've got diamond-style inlays on the fretboard as well as your headstock. It's rather a unique beast. Just for fun, let's go ahead and compare it. You can see how it is definitely a little bit more squished than a regular Les Paul and the other differences that we had talked about. But it also weighs a lot less because these are made of poplar, believe it or not. But here you can see just how much thinner it is. So in many ways, it's kind of like a Les Paul meets SG. That gets you very close as to what it is, but I would say this is just a little bit thicker, but they have a very similar weight to them, as well as the length of their bodies pretty familiar. But if you were a blues musician and you just can't pull off the giant 335, but you still want the semi-hollow look with the F-holes, I think that's what they were going for here. Kind of a blending of all the Gibson models into something brand new. So first impressions aside, now let's learn its history. The Blueshawk was a mutation on a model called the Nighthawk, and were designed by J.T. Ribeloff. That one was introduced in 1993 and lasted till 1999. They had so many different iterations, from a special to a standard to a custom. And all things considered, those were definitely the more popular ones. I mean, there's even a Nancy Wilson signature Epiphone version created. However, in mid-1996, the Blueshawk is born. They essentially took the Nighthawk body and changed up the cosmetics a little bit. You don't see as many variations on the Blueshawk. You can get 3 colors, Chicago Blue, Heritage Cherry, as well as Ebony. And the option did exist. If you didn't want the string-through body style, you could get a Maestro Bigsby B5 unit slapped on one. So those are your standard core models that lasted from mid-1996 until spring of 2006. Now, as far as limited edition ones, there actually is a Little Lucille, which is a BB King signature, including the TP6 tailpiece. Those are pretty cool. We'll have to review one day. Otherwise, as far as I'm aware, Epiphone did give these some love in 2015 briefly with a Blueshawk Deluxe model. It's very similar to the Gibson one that we're documenting today, except for they did a figured maple veneer top. But they were created because blues music was starting to get more popular, and hey, the 90s was a really experimental time for the Gibson Guitar Company. They had just formally opened a separate division called the Custom Shop. They were trying out new things. They were just under new ownership and things started to look up for them. So why not design something brand new? Unfortunately, these guys don't see a lot of love yet today. But I've always wanted to check one out on the show, and it had to be blue because Blueshawk. Is there any other option? As far as the case and candy goes, I do not have any paperwork on this one. However, the Blueshawk has a very distinct case. Sometimes you'll see these things show up and people are like, I have no idea what it is. It's just kind of a squished Les Paul looking thing. They're very narrow right here. That's a great way to identify them. And it's also very common for Blueshawks and Nighthawks to not have their original cases for some reason. So let's go ahead and throw this one on the workbench, see if we can learn a little bit more about this example from the year 2001. All right, let's go ahead and learn all the Blueshawk secrets. But first off, this would look really cool with black hardware in my opinion. That's just with the pickup covers removed. P90s have adjustable pole pieces. These do not. These are slug coils. This is actually a B90. It's called the Blues 90. So this is a special pickup designed just for the Blueshawk. Now to me, it looks a little bit thinner than a regular P90 and it has less windings. But the backside just looks like this. It's labeled R for rhythm and the bridge pickup is labeled L for lead. But the bridge pickup looks very similar to the neck as far as its construction. This model has a side output jack. Now the varitone on this has 6 different positions. It's basically a mid-cut / band stop filter. Same thing as like what you'd find on an ES345. It just doesn't have the plate around it on this model. But as you can see, the different positions don't really change our readings within the circuit. But here's something I didn't know. This also has a push-pull pot, but our neck pickup reads 10.85 k ohms, 10.82 in the bridge, and then the middle position, no usable reading. I'm betting that has something to do with the dummy coil. Yeah, it just makes it really high. But here's a peek inside the neck pickup cavity. You can see you've got threaded inserts within the body. And the same thing is true in our bridge pickup cavity, but this one has paint all over it. You can see some sort of a sign-off right there and the exposed poplar body. You're going to see online that these are semi-hollow because people see the F-holes and they automatically assume that. This is very similar to the later released Midtown series where they take a body, they chamber a little area out right here and then another one very similar to basically a control cavity, and then they put a flat top on it. So it's not like a 335 that has a pressed top back and sides to be true semi-hollow. It's more so similar to the Florentine series, which came out very similar in periods of time, where it's just a chambered Les Paul essentially. You can actually see the end of the cavity right there, so I'm not even going to bother to break out the endoscope. Now let's check out our bridge. The unit itself looks like this. It's kind of like Stratocaster meets Telecaster. But then you've got the 6 holes for your strings to go through. And you can adjust the intonation down here and the height of each saddle. But right here is your grounding wire channel. It gets smashed by your bridge to ground that off. It actually looked like this one was installed improperly because you should be able to see an indent on the finish if it was being grounded. I think the reason why it didn't is it's just a little bit too short to go there. But otherwise, it just secures to the top using 4 screws on the outside. So theoretically, if you wanted to put a different style Bigsby on here and you didn't get the stock example, this is what you'd be left with as far as holes. But this is all solid right here, so you don't have to worry about hitting a cavity. Your cavities are just right here. Now we can take a closer look. You've got a labeled volume and a tone. Again, that's on a push-pull system. And this is a 3-position blade switch because we only have 2 traditional pickups in it. And again, your 6-way varitone. Now the reason it took me 4 to 5 years to find one of these is I was looking for one in the cleanest condition possible at the right price, and it had to be blue. Chicago blue is not necessarily a rare color. And I was told this one was lightly played. Unfortunately, there's like a lot of metal pick scratching right here. It's not too bad now that I've polished it up, but unfortunately not the one for my collection. I was really hopeful on this one too because it's got the plastic on the back plate. But it does have some cool wood grain over here. And you saw that right. For whatever reason, they put Blueshawk on the edge of the fretboard there. But if you're interested in being the next owner of this one, I'll kind of shine it over the lights. I mean, you can see there's clear coat scratching a little bit deeper than polishing swirls pretty much all over this thing. But as far as these Blueshawks go, I mean, it's not the worst. I don't regret picking it up to document because I'm having a good time learning about this model finally. But here's a look at our B90 pickup covers. They're just your regular ones, but cream. And your pickup screws look like this, and they utilize springs to help set your height adjustment. But moving on from our body, we can go to our unique neck. So it's a mahogany neck with a rosewood fretboard, so very traditional Gibson, but everything else is just kind of thrown out the window. So first thing I noticed cleaning these frets, they seem bigger than typical Gibson fret wire. You see how squared off they are on the edge? They seem very tall and meaty to me. I mean, this is what I measure for height, and here's what I get for width. But if you're curious if the diamond inlays are mother of pearl or acrylic, they're acrylic. But they're not the worst looking fake stuff we've ever seen. But sure enough, it is the Fender 25.5-inch scale, but matches your typical 12-inch fretboard radius. Let's see how narrow this nut is. 1.62, yeah. Most Gibsons are very close to 1.7. But then it's about normal by the 12th, 2.05. So start skinny, gets wide, and then you get more of a pronounced V shape. So keep in mind, 0.85 is actually going to feel a little bit smaller than that at the first fret neck depth because you don't have much shoulder. But then by the 12th, it's going to measure 1, but I'll give you a side profile shot of that. Here that is on the contour gauge from the 1st, 7th to the 12th fret. It's a slightly offset soft V neck. So this is your bass side right here where your thumb rests against. You can see it doesn't have a lot of shoulder here, but then it really cuts off on the treble side. But towards the middle of the neck, it's almost just like a regular C. It's kind of weird how it goes soft V, C to a slightly harder V over here. But now our headstock. So the double diamond up here actually is mother of pearl. And I learned something else new. So you see the outline around it? That's typical. That'll just happen on Gibson guitars. However, I never knew that there was a black line in between them to make that distinctive double diamond shape. So that was kind of cool to see. But otherwise, our headstock cleaned up beautifully. The truss rod functions perfectly, and the cover for these is simply bare. And now on to the fun part. So I knew about the dummy coil, but I did not realize that they hide the varitone choke underneath it. So normally on an ES345, if you take out the bridge pickup, you can find one of these screwed down just under there. This is the switch for the varitone, but I do believe that's what makes the magic happen. So they have an extra deep cavity route right there that just hides into. It's not even screwed into place either. What they do is they take our dummy coil here, and they have 2 sticky pads, and they just stick it into place. But here's a look at our dummy coil. It has no pull pieces, so it's not going to generate any sound in and of itself, but it still has the windings, and it essentially acts like a P100 pickup, making each of the B90s a stacked version of itself, except for this is just hiding in the back. But here's the entirety of the control cavity. So basically what you're going to have is this replicated over onto this side of the body as far as the chambering, as well as technically the weight relief right here. As far as our wiring, looks like a Gibson branded pot. Here's what your blade switch looks like on the backside. Your varitone 6-way switch. And then I didn't even know this model had a push-pull until I looked in the back here. But sure enough. But there's a good area to see our poplar body. In case you're curious, the whole guitar is about 1.75 inches thick, but the body's about 15 3/4 inches long, with 9 up here and about 12 3/4 inches down here. But don't forget, you have a generous comfort cut over here. It's very diagonal, just chops a lot out of the guitar, so it's going to rest against you very closely. And here's the backside of our string through ferrules. So let's play the game. How many pieces is the body? Put your guess in the comment section below. If you put 3, you're wrong. If you put 5, you're also wrong. It's 4, or at least that's what I count. So there's 1 right here. You can see it's darker. Then you get another stripe right there. That's your second. And then you do have a pretty sizable piece right here. If you get it in the light just right, you can see the next join line right there. So super ultra multi-piece poplar body with a 2-piece maple top. But here's the next thing about the body that you might not have known. There's another comfort cut right here. So watch as the light dances. You see how it actually goes downwards? They contour the area just to get a little bit more of the body away from where you're going to be doing your soloing work. It's subtle, but it's definitely there. Here's what it looks like on the contour gauge. So this is the flatness of the body right here, and then it slopes downward. And just for fun, I was telling you how the cutaway's really steep. You can see how pronounced that is. But this dummy coil has a back plate. It's just rectangular. Well, we can take a quick gander around the edges. Got a couple of nicks and dings. There's your full gold output jack plate. Got a strap button here and up there. And now it's time to move on to the neck. In my opinion, I think the Blueshawk should have been done up with a maple neck. Because if you wonder why, hey, why is the neck such a darker color, whereas this is a light, nice sapphire blue, it's because poplar is a very light colored wood. It makes the blue finish look different when you put it on a darker canvas. So it is the exact same finish, it just looks different. If it was a maple neck, it would have been a little bit closer in hue, but every one will vary just a little bit. Just like we saw here, darker piece, lighter piece. But no binding on the neck of these. However, you do see the edge of the fretboard, so it kind of looks like wooden binding. But now our tuners, this Clusen style Gibson Deluxe. This one dates to the 14th day of 2001, production 611, made in USA. But all said and done, this one weighs 6 pounds, 11.8 ounces. Not bad. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how the Blues 90 pickups sound. Let's get our basic tones. I have the varitone out of the circuit, so you're just hearing the pickups. like that middle position. But now let's bring the varitone into the circuit. Those are some really deep sounds out of such a small guitar. And of course, you can do the same thing with the bridge. The middle. Whoa, both pickups together. I've always heard that varitone sucked the tone out of your guitar. It's very cool to have one where you can take it in and out of the circuit, because apparently it is true. So just listen to this chord. It's subtle, but I hear it personally in the low notes. we know all about the Gibson Blueshawk, what are my final thoughts on this thing? Would I ultimately suggest trying one of these out? 1000% yes. If you're a Gibson fan and you like bluesy tones, I mean, this was kind of designed for you. However, these really aren't all that expensive. I mean, in the 2024 market, you're generally in that $1,500-ish range for a clean one with a case. And I can honestly say 100% worth it, even if it's just for something different in your collection to inspire you to play differently. I had so much fun with this one. I think there should be a Slash signature Blueshawk, especially since he's starting to get into some blues albums and stuff. It's an interesting piece. It's kind of like an ES345, just in a vague Les Paul format, but something different that's nice and lightweight. It wasn't hurting my back. Some things that I will mention. The switch is kind of noisy on this model, but I was most surprised by the neck profile on this one. If V-necks aren't your style, I wouldn't really be scared of this one. It's not like overly obnoxious by any means, but it's something different. And P90 variations always scare me because they don't always have the right tones. But the Blues 90 pickups, I would consider trying those in another guitar too. So it's fun, it sounds good, but I also understand why it failed. The body shape is just too weird for me. But if you can get past that, this thing is a boatload of fun. Alright, Troglodytes, I hope you understand the Blueshawk better. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care. If you think this body style is cool, you might enjoy the B&G Little Sister. It's a boutique guitar out of Israel, and we documented one here.